Hello everybody, good morning. Welcome back to Mrs. V's virtual classroom. The first thing I want to do is I have the wiggles. So if you have the wiggles, you can stand up or do some stretching and just kind of wiggle it out. I don't know about you guys, but I'm feeling awesome today and I want to make sure that we have an awesome day today. So, drum roll, let's get ready for reading. All right, repeat after me. In reading, we will read a story and summarize it. Awesome, boys and girls. So the first thing I want us to do is let's take a second and think. Summarizing. Now this is a new skill that we started working on week 1 of distance learning. So let's think back. What does it mean to summarize? If you think you know, can you tell someone in the room you're with and then kind of shout it out? Amazing. I know that most of you guys have probably said that when you summarize, that means you're just retelling the story in a shorter way. And you have those 5 parts to do it, okay? Now, you don't have an organizer with you this week, boys and girls. So the only thing you need to do is make sure you have a writing utensil, pen, pencil. I prefer pencils just because I can erase. And then you need a piece of paper. Remember, you can use lined paper, scrap paper, use the backs of packets that you used for the past 2 weeks. Sticky notes, notepad, whatever you have, but you need to make sure you've got a writing utensil and something to write on. I'm going to be using my whiteboard to help us today. Okay, so the first thing I want us to do is review those 5 parts of a summary. We have somebody, wanted, but, so, and then. So those are our 5 parts. Now remember, our summary we ask is, who is the main character? Wanted, what did that main character want? But, what was the conflict? So what are those important events that help the character maybe solve that conflict? Then the resolution. What was the resolution? And remember, the resolution can be 2 things. Was the conflict solved, or did the character's feelings change at all? All right, so on your piece of paper, what you can do is you can write down these 5 words, because when you read your fiction story, then you can write down your summary. All right, so today we are going to be reading a fun book, and we have read this before, so we should have a lot of this information in our brains already. We're going to be reading Chrysanthemum, all right, by Kevin Henkes. Now, boys and girls, you can tell your parents, you can tell them that this is my favorite author. Kevin Henkes is an amazing author and illustrator. He writes and illustrates his books. Chrysanthemum. The day she was born was the happiest day in her parents' lives. She's perfect, said her mother. Absolutely perfect, said her father, and she was. She was absolutely perfect. Her name must be everything she is. Her name must be absolutely perfect. And it was. Chrysanthemum. Her parents named her Chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum grew and grew and grew. And when she was old enough to appreciate it, Chrysanthemum loved her name. She loved the way it sounded when her mother woke her up. She loved the way it sounded when she was called for dinner. And she loved the way it sounded when she whispered it to herself in the bathroom mirror. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum loved the way she looked when it was written with ink on an envelope. She loved the way it looked when it was written with icing on a birthday cake. And she loved the way it looked when she wrote it herself in her fat orange crayon. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum thought her name was absolutely perfect. And then she started school. On the first day, she wore her sunniest dress and her brightest smile. She ran all the way there. Hooray, said Chrysanthemum, school! But when Mrs. Chud took roll call, everyone giggled when they heard her name. It's so long, said Joe. It doesn't even fit on a name tag, said Rita. I'm named after my grandmother, said Victoria, and you're named after a flower. Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was perfect anymore. She thought it was dreadful. The rest of the day was not much better. During nap time, Victoria raised her hand and informed everyone that Chrysanthemum's name had 13 letters. That's half as many letters in the entire alphabet, Victoria explained. Thank you for sharing, Victoria, said Mrs. Chud. Now put your head down. Right now I'm thinking of those 5 parts to a summary. If I had a name like yours, I would change it, Victoria said. I wish I could, said Chrysanthemum. Welcome home, her mother and father said. School is no place for me, said Chrysanthemum. My name is too long, it doesn't fit on a name tag, and I'm named after a flower. Oh, psh, said her mother. Your name is beautiful. And precious and priceless, said her father. It is absolutely perfect, they said. I don't know if Chrysanthemum feels that way, though. But she felt much better after her favorite dinner, macaroni and cheese with ketchup, and an evening filled with hugs and kisses. That night, she dreamed that her name was Jane. It was an absolutely, extremely pleasant dream. The next morning, Chrysanthemum wore her most comfortable jumper. She walked to school as slowly as she could. She dragged her feet in the dirt. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Ugh, she even looks like a flower, said Victoria, as Chrysanthemum came to the playground. Let's pick her, said Rita. Let's smell her, said Joe. Chrysanthemum wilted. Her name is not perfect, she thought. It was absolutely dreadful. Starting to think I know what the conflict is right now, boys and girls. The rest of the day was not much better. During nap time, Victoria raised her hand again. A chrysanthemum is a flower. It lives in the gardens with worms and other dirty things. Mrs. Chud said to Victoria, put your head down. I just cannot believe your name, Victoria said as everyone lined up. Neither can I, Chrysanthemum said miserably. Welcome home, her parents said. School is no place for me, said Chrysanthemum. They said I even looked like a flower and they pretended to pick me and smell me. Oh, psh, said her mother. They're just jealous and they are envious of your name. Who wouldn't be jealous with a name like yours, said her mother. After all, it's absolutely perfect, said her father. Chrysanthemum felt a little better after her favorite dessert, chocolate cake with buttercream frosting, and another evening filled with hugs and kisses. That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that she really was a chrysanthemum. She sprouted leaves and petals. Victoria picked her and plucked her leaves and petals one by one until there was only a stem left. It was the worst nightmare ever. Chrysanthemum wore her outfit with 7 pockets the next morning. She loaded the pockets with her most prized possessions and her good luck charms. She stopped and stared at each and every flower. Chrysanthemum, 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 all the flowers seemed to say. That morning, the students were introduced to Mrs. Twinkle, the music teacher. Her voice was something out of a dream, as was everything else about her. The students were speechless. They thought Mrs. Twinkle was an indescribable wonder. They went out of their way to make a great first impression. Mrs. Twinkle led the students in scales. Then she assigned roles for the class musical. Victoria was chosen as the dainty fairy queen. Rita was chosen as the butterfly princess. Joe was chosen as the pixie messenger, and Chrysanthemum was chosen as the daisy. Chrysanthemum's a daisy, chrysanthemum's a daisy, Joe, Rita, and Victoria chanted, thinking it was so funny. Chrysanthemum wilted. Her name is not perfect, and it's absolutely dreadful. What's so funny? Asked Mrs. Twinkle. Chrysanthemum was the answer. Her name is so long, it doesn't even fit on a name tag, said Rita. I'm named after my grandmother, and she's named after a flower, said Victoria. My name is long, said Mrs. Twinkle. It is, said Joe. My name would scarcely fit on a name tag, said Mrs. Twinkle. It wouldn't, said Rita. And, said Mrs. Twinkle, I'm named after a flower too. You are, said Victoria. Yes. My name is Delphinium. Delphinium Twinkle. And if my baby is a girl, I'm considering Chrysanthemum as a name. I think it's absolutely perfect, said Mrs. Twinkle. Chrysanthemum could not believe her ears. She blushed, she beamed, she bloomed. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Joe, Rita, and Victoria looked at Chrysanthemum longingly. Call me Marigold, said Joe. I'll be Carnation, said Rita. My name is Lily, said Victoria. Chrysanthemum did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She knew it. The end. So now, boys and girls, I'm going to show you what your job is going to be, okay? So, my somebody. Well, who is my story all about? Who is that main character? Chrysanthemum. And you can look back at your text if you need help writing the names. Chrysanthemum. Okay? And what did she want? Chrysanthemum, what did she want? She wanted to love school. She wanted to love school. Uh-oh. But what happened, boys and girls? What was the big conflict? You're right, everyone was making fun of her. Chrysanthemum wanted to love school, but everyone made fun of her name. So, what things kind of happened to help Chrysanthemum solve the conflict? Let's think. Chrysanthemum wanted to love school, but everyone made fun of her name. So what happened to kind of change everything? You're right, Mrs. Twinkle. So, Mrs. Twinkle shared that she was named after a flower too. Shared that she was named after a flower. Okay, so we have our somebody, what she wanted, but that conflict, so those important events. Okay, so then, what, is the resolution? You're right, Chrysanthemum loved school again because everyone wanted their names to be just like hers. So then, Chrysanthemum, loved school and her name. The end. So boys and girls, this is your job when you are creating your summaries this week. On a piece of paper, you can write those 5 parts. And then when you're finished reading that fiction book, you're going to write down those 5 parts to a summary. But before we stop, I do want to share with you the next step. If we were in school together, our next step would be to take all 5 parts and create one big paragraph summary. Okay, so I'm going to do that right now with you so we can kind of see what that would look like. So you will take those 5 parts, okay? And create one big paragraph. So ready? Watch me. I have those 5 parts in my brain. You would just write your paragraph under your notes already. Chrysanthemum wanted to love school. So I already have my somebody and what she wanted, comma, but everyone made fun of her name, period. So I have my somebody, what she wanted, and that conflict. So Chrysanthemum wanted to love school, but everyone made fun of her name. Whoop. So Mrs. Twinkle shared that her name was also a flower. Okay? So again, remember we're taking those 5 parts and creating a paragraph. And remember, a paragraph is several sentences all together. Chrysanthemum wanted to love school, but everybody made fun of her name. So Mrs. Twinkle shared that her name was also a flower. Then Chrysanthemum loved school and her name. All right, boys and girls, remember, your only job is to be writing down your 5 parts of a summary. But my challenge to you, and what I would love for you to be doing, is then taking those 5 parts and creating a paragraph summary. This is what we would be doing if we were in school together, and this is the expectation, is that you were taking those parts to create a paragraph summary, because as you get older and older, this is what your expectation will be, okay? I can't wait to hear how these summaries go, and if you try a paragraph summary, I'd love to see a picture of it. All right, I love you all so much. Happy summarizing.